The 62nd British monarch, King Charles III, will take the throne on May 6th. And to get us ready for the big day, we have the documentary Charles in His Own Words. Filmmaker Tom Jennings here to talk all about those big moments leading up to this coronation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Rudy. Thanks for having me.
The special, of course, going to be airing on National Geographic, Hulu, and Disney Plus. So plenty of platforms to go ahead and check it out. But what do you know as far as the vibe in London right now as we're getting ready for the big day?
Well, I was just there a week ago. Speaking of the vibe, I'm promoting this film, and you can feel it in the air. It is ramping up. I know people who are traveling there. They don't have tickets for the coronation. They don't have tickets for the concert. They recognize how historic it is. I mean, the last time there was a coronation of a British monarch was his mother in the 1950s. So it is a big deal. You can already see the bunting going up on the buildings, near and far. It's going to be quite the scene from my experience there just a week ago. I'm sad I won't see it in person, but at the same time, the crowds that were already starting to come in are going to make it difficult to navigate your way around central London.
Oh, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to see in this special, because we get to see his journey from getting born into royalty to getting bullied at school to the marriage to Princess Diana to his relationship with Camilla, the kids. I mean, how did you go about picking out, the timeline of the story to tell?
Well, in working with the network, they wanted to be sure that it wasn't a typical biography where like he's born and then, we just follow straight through a nothing wrong with that. I've done a lot of those in my day. They wanted to have a current connection. And so in working with them, I said, the story starts the day the Queen dies, because that's like the clock starts ticking. And so we looked for current events in our current timeline of all of this that could be tied to themes that we wanted to explore. And we at first chose like a dozen themes, and we got it down to 5 or 6. And the themes became his relationship with the media, his relationship with his sons when Diana was alive, and for the few years after when Diana had died. We talked about his search for a queen, and we explored all of these things using archival images only. There's no narration and no modern interviews. And we did that by going around the globe. He's much like Diana, he's one of the most photographed people in the world. Wherever he goes, there are cameras. And whenever we visit archival sources, we'll say, if it's a news source, we don't want your cut to air piece. We want the raw. What do you have from that day? And beyond that, we'll say not only the raw, but what do you have that's not digitized? Because not everything gets digitized. That's certainly from the past. And sure enough, they'll say, well, down the hall, there's like 10 boxes from the '94 trip to Australia. And we'll say, well, we'll pay to digitize that stuff. And by doing that, we get all of this remarkable material that's been lost to time. So even though the event may feel familiar for people who know about a particular event or a trip that he took, for example, you're seeing it with images that have never been out there. I always tell my researchers, just because it's not on the internet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So
those are powerful words right there.
I would say at least, I know. I should write a book.
Just because it's not on the internet does not mean that it doesn't exist. That's a whole nother interview on that part.
Yes, I agree.
But we do get to see the media interview that he did shortly after his split with Princess Diana, and obviously a huge for the royal family to be able to give an interview, like that. Talk a little bit about that impact, and is that why we don't see, Prince William, Kate, like them doing normal interviews because of that particular interview?
Yes, you're talking about the one with Jonathan Dimbleby, a documentary filmmaker in the UK. Charles, the reason he did it, and this was, I love digging back in time and finding, facts, doing research. One thing I did not know is in 1993, the year after he and Diana had separated, there was a Gallup poll done in the UK asking about his popularity. And his popularity in the Gallup poll was 4%. I mean, yeah, how do you recover from a 4% popularity rating? And obviously he has, but in order to help his popularity, he decided that he was going to sit down with Jonathan Dimbleby and tell his story. And he did. And he said that, yes, I had an affair with Camilla Parker Bowles, but only after our marriage was irrevocably broken. That's, I think, the phrase he used. And he was doing it to try and tell people, I'm not so bad. The whole thing had blown up. I was lonely. The headlines didn't play that way. Affair in the Palace, was one of the, headlines we found. And he was continued to be pilloried. And I think it was after Diana's passing and when he was very good to his boys that perhaps the public started to realize that, he was grieving along with them. And he has slowly rebuilt his image. One thing I learned about Charles is that he plays a very long game in everything that he does, whether it be his comments on climate change and global warming, which basically started when he was 19 and named Prince of Wales when he learned about environmental issues in Wales, or with Camilla. I did not know that they dated in 1970 when they were both single. And that because they had been intimate, as young people do, it disqualified her from marrying Charles and becoming queen. But here we are 53 years later, and Charles is married to Camilla. Camilla's going to be queen, and Charles is going to be king. That is a very long, long game that he played, and he's been successful at it.
And one of the parts from the special that I got to learn was that Charles's great great grandfather had a mistress who was Camilla's great great grandmother. I mean, that crazy how those two things kind of played out in history.
Yeah, and that was supposedly Camilla's line, like, hey, they got together. How about it? I mean, she literally said, how about it? And I was like, and he's what, 21, 22? Okay.
You can't blame a 21-year-old for trying, right?
I know.
Oh, exactly. Well, Tom, thank you so much for your time today. Charles, in his own words, April 28th on National Geographic, on Hulu, April 29th, and then May 5th on Disney+.
Rudy, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.